I'm going to talk about something I'm very passionate about. It is the commercial side of building a startup, and more specifically, how to build a viable business model. The importance of solving a real problem. Dare to be narrow, be niche, be that big fish in the small pond. The importance of validating as early as possible, even before you have a product available. I'm Heidi. I'm very, very happy to be here. And I have been invited today to talk about something that I'm really, really passionate about. And that is actually the commercial side of building a startup. And before we jump into that, I just want to give you a tiny bit about my background. So as mentioned, I have a long history with AIESEC. I actually used to have the same role as Pascal did many years ago when I was what we called president in AIESEC in Norway, fancy titles back then. And my whole AIESEC background, it started by me studying at the university at Oslo. And I really wanted to work abroad, and I had understood that AIESEC could help me with that. But it was back then a couple of months before they actually started the recruitment process for those students who wanted to work abroad. And I got so fascinated with AIESEC, so I actually became a member, and later on it also became my full-time job leading the Norwegian chapter. And again, this session is not going to be about AIESEC, but I have to say to all of you listening, that was my smartest career move ever. In AIESEC, I learned the importance of daring to make a fool of yourself. I learned to go on stage. I learned to fail. And maybe the most important was that I learned that those who have the highest expectation to you is often yourself. So again, something I was very, very happy that I joined this organization. AIESEC also led me straight into a sales career. So I've had many years in more corporate sector in IT companies such as Sandberg and Atea, software innovation. Always on the commercial side, different roles like selling directly or indirectly, selling hardware and software as a service, and lots of different things. But for the last 5-6 years, I've been working for 2 startups, Huddly and Greps. And today, I plan for this session to be a lot of just sharing, like stuff I learned, mistakes we did, do's and don'ts, and keeping it really informal. But just to give you a bit of the background of those companies, so the first company started by Join is a company called Huddly. It's they're making smart collaboration cameras. Huddly actually had their IPO in February. And to give you just a picture of those 2 startups that I worked for, Huddly, a collaboration camera company, IPO just recently with a value of 4 billion Norwegian kroner. Greps was the latest company I worked for. I was there as the CEO and co-founder, completely different type of company. This time it was like pure software, and it was a platform to measure and benchmark software engineering skills. And I'll use these 2 companies a bit as like reference points and just giving examples from that. Right now, I don't work for any of those companies, just so that's said. So today I speak merely as Heidi and my experience. Right, so let's jump into it. The viable business model. And it might sound a bit like obvious that you should have it, but there's just one thing that I've learned after being in startups, and that is that it's just so much more fun to build a company if you have money. And in the beginning, there's like there's typically maybe like 3 ways you can get revenue from. One, you can like in Norway, there's a lot of like grants, public grants you can have. You can earn money from what you're selling, your product or your solution, or you can get it from investors. And a bit of the funny thing is like when you have found that repeatable, scalable business model, this is often a time where you actually don't need the investors so much. You're not so depending on them because you then have that that business that is kind of fueling itself. But in very early stage, what investors are looking for is your plan, how to reach to that model. They want to hear like the components of the plan, what you plan to do to actually make sure that you can earn money out of whatever you're building. And for me, it's often start with one thing. Again, might sound simple, but it can be extremely hard. Solve a real problem. What does it mean? I don't know how many startups I met in Norway and abroad where when you start digging into it, it might not be a real problem that you're solving. It's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. And an important part of a business model is like it's one place you need to earn money of it, either from a consumer or from a company. And for someone to put money on your solution, you actually need to build something that matters. And you need to actually identify who has that problem, like what problem are you solving it, and who actually owns that problem. And the who part is just as important as what is the problem, because the who is very often connected to who wants to pay for this, right? And another thing, again, might sound like something you've heard thousands of times before, but it's often like when you start building something, a product or solution, it's awesome, we think, ourselves. But the bigger or the wider you frame your problem or what you're going to solve, the more competitors you get. And one of my learnings is like, dare to go as narrow as you can, like, which means a lot of say no, take away. You can always add other features, other products, other verticals, but dare to start with like one problem that you solve for one group of customers and try that out. You can always change later, but dare to be super, super niche. Niche is very, very cool. If you're too wide, if you're framing your problem in a way that this can be a bit generic, you become easily like a bit similar to all the other small fishes out there. And then you can very easily risk being that nobody that is not like an expert. If you dare to go narrow, you can go very, very, very deep, and you can really understand the problem you're trying to solve. I also often like to say that you should be it's a bit cliche, be the best in the world. What do I mean by that? Like, you as a founder or planning to be a founder, when you make something, like you have a company or that idea and that's where that thing you want to solve, you yourself and the founding team, you need to believe and trust in yourself that you are going to be the best in the world in what you're doing. You never have to be like the largest in the world. You don't have to sell globally or sell to the whole world. But you need to know in your heart that what we do it differently. Again, building a business is super hard. We all heard the sad statistics of 9 to 10 startups are not making it, and all of that. And a big learning of what I've seen after being now in 2 startups is find that one thing that we can do a bit different. It can be something in the solution of the product. It can be something in the business model. It can be a combination of that. But we need to be able to articulate for ourselves and really believe in that what we do is different. The saddest thing is to be like too little, too late, with no money and be a nobody. So to aim to really dig deep and find that who are we going to be and why are we so different, and articulate that to investors and to the team members you want to recruit and everyone. Super, super big learning. You waste so much time if you try to be just like anybody else, right? Because very often all the others out there, they tend to have bigger pockets, investors, they've come further, they have customers already. And a part of this, like, who should I be, or who should our company be, and what position should we take, is a lot about finding that target market and see what opportunities there for us. Do the homework and do the market research. Understand where is the market I'm going to be in, where am I going to start. Sometimes you will discover that markets are blocked by others. And that is okay. It just means that we maybe need to put focus another place. Let me give an example from when I was in Hudley, this camera company. Hudley made this collaboration camera. People often said that it looked a bit like a webcam, but what we said it was an intelligent camera, something to be used in video conferencing meetings, meaning sold to businesses. And an important part of understanding what position should we have was to see where is the collaboration market globally. And then US was like very early for us. It was very clear that we need to understand the US market, and we need to be big there. And why is that? Well, number one, all the potential partners were there, such as Google's or Microsoft or Zoom that we are now, or Blue Jeans or Google Hangouts. Like all of those were that piece of that camera could be part of a package. But also that was where the competitors were, such as Logitech, Cisco, and then others. And to take the time to both see like where is the market, where are we going to play. For Hudley, it was the game plan was always to play where the others are and take a seat at the table globally. Like in the beginning, make the company look bigger than what it is, but make sure we play where the other plays. Other times it can be more correct to see where are all the others and can we be somewhere else. Personally, I always think it's more fun to build something that has like a global reach or a global potential. I think that is just but that is very much for me, right? It can be that maybe what you guys are doing, or like in the company that you want to build, you can see we can have a Scandinavian reach, or maybe the Baltics is the place we should start, because there is no competitors there, or there's factors that gives or market condition that gives a space for us. It's like failing to understand the market again is like often a lot of loss of time, which you don't have much of when you're building. Another part of that, the market and the opportunity is to understand, of course, the revenue model that we're going to go after. Like, or before we go to the revenue market, let me take the next slide. The sales model that you should go for, or go to market, another word for it. Let me again use Hudley as the example. A camera. We had identified like US is a very important market in terms of like potential partners. In the beginning, Hudley was a unknown Norwegian company, very, very little money. It was in the beginning, like for most startups, it was like harder to get investors and all of that. So it didn't have a lot of funds, not a lot of people, and yeah, typical startup story. And so when it comes to the go-to-market kind of model, it was important to do a couple of things. So one way was how was camera sold today? That was an exercise we did, and we saw that it's sold to distributors who are then selling it to resellers, who are then selling it to the end customer, and the end customer was like a company. And in that company, it was typically someone in charge of like meeting rooms or this collaboration Cisco system. That would be the target person we would talk to. This was the obvious model, right? This is the way cameras always have been sold, and we identified that one. But in addition, we saw we were looking for other places where our product can be part of someone else's package. So that, again, when Hudley was a small company, so that we can lean into the brand of others, but also we can lean into their distribution models, and we can lean into their customer supports and their customer relations. So next to a market channel that was called kind of the distributors, were like the way companies always have been buying this type of cameras, we put another channel. And the first company that Hudley signed with was Google. Google wanted to take a place, or not take a place, because they were already in the collaboration market, but they wanted to take a larger part of that market. And for Hudley, this was a fantastic opportunity to kind of be part of Google's hardware package. You know, Google have Google Hangout, Google Meet, but they also have a collaboration package with hardware. And the company was able to sign an agreement there, meaning that Huddly's company or customers was then Google, who then in its turn would get the camera to market. In addition to that, so now we have two channels already. In addition to that, in the beginning, Huddly had a third channel, which was a direct sales, like e-commerce, selling via Amazon in the US and our own webpage, like a web shop on our webpage. This was a model only meant for building brand and our own kind of marketing purposes. And these three models were put together next to each other and communicated very openly to everyone. And the beauty of such a model is that you could both, one, lean into how is cameras bought today by our identified target group, but also can we lean on someone else in B2B sales. Scaling globally is often easier if you can find some kind of partnerships. And then the third one, also build our own brand, be something on our own, and also using e-commerce as a beachhead type of strategy, meaning that large potential customers would buy maybe one camera directly from Huddly to test it, to try it, to see how is it. And then when they wanted to buy their 500 or 1,000 cameras for their meeting room, they would go and buy it where they normally bought cameras, typically from the resellers. So again, but the scalable sales model, like one thing is like the go-to-market, the channels we have. Another thing, and it's easy to say, but another thing is this. So what do you do? So what do you do if like you don't have something to sell yet? Which is often the questions for company, and it was like that for Huddly also in the beginning. So typically, where you start both to understand what go-to-market model works best for my company is with the validation. Validation is super hard sometimes because you can get a lot of noise. You can have a lot of like, I thought this would make sense for this target groups or that, but it's also an extremely smart investment in terms of saving time and not at least money. Validating a product before you actually have something to sell is all about get it out there in front of customers, ideally get some kind of money and get feedback. Ask customers or pilots or those who like have your product in hand, what do you love about my product? What do you hate about it? And build those ambassadors on your way. Build people that loves to be an early ambassador, but at the same time gives you traction for investors, but also gives you information in terms of what should I build. Way too often we see startups that are waiting, that are finishing everything on the technology side before they start selling. Typically what you lose is both important feedback in terms of building that product, but also super important feedback in terms of how should we sell it. Because finding those go-to-market models and the ones that works for like the company you have or you plan to build typically takes a bit of time and a lot of experimenting. When I was in Huddly, taking an example from there again, it was a hardware product, a camera, meaning that there was a lot of technology that needed to be built before it was like a finished product. So what we did, like while it was like kind of ready but not completely done, we made something called a pre-launch program. Pre-launch being very clear to everyone who bought the camera about this is not yet. It's like pre-launch. It's something we do now prior to. We sold the camera to customers in 15 countries, like 1 per or 2 per, or very few per customers. And it was a beautiful way of one, validating the product itself, but two, getting feedback on features, what should be built, but also stuff like price point, what should it cost. So actually having people who can ask, what do you think this camera should cost? Or other times try and say, this is the price we think it should be. What's your opinion on that? Because again, it is in the beginning and when you're searching for that perfect, beautiful business model, there is so many X factors you just don't have, and the best way of getting answers is actually to get the product in your customer's hand, even if it's not ready yet. Another aspect of the sales model that is super important early is marketing. It doesn't matter if it's a B2B or a B2C, and marketing is something that needs to be a crucial part of any business model plan. And why is that? Today, if I say that you have a B2B product and you're selling to someone who works in a company, although I'm the CFO or head of marketing or whoever is your target group, even though I have like a role like in my like as a profession, I am still an individual that is used to all kind of bombardment from social media. We are all consumers today. We all relate to like Facebook and TikTok and Snapchat and LinkedIn and whatnot. And it's extremely noisy out there now. It is just so hard to get attention. And we are way past the time where it's enough to just have like a nice web page. I know today there are a lot of you guys are from different countries, which I think is awesome. So maybe it's unfair to say startups in Norway, but I'll say it anyway. One thing that is often said about companies starting out of Norway is that we totally underestimate the importance of building a marketing automation platform and have marketing as part of our strategy really early. Look to Sweden, and we already see a completely different mindset around this. Marketing is a way not only where you can kind of get customers to try out your product and be interested in you, but it's also a way we communicate to potential team members, to the press, to investors, to potential partners, to competitors, to everyone, and to really understand which channel should I be in to reach my customers is of the essence. In both Greps, the latest company I was in, and Huddly, we very early started the marketing kind of path. Actually, in Huddly, we were a bit delayed with the product, and then we still had that but what do we do on marketing side? We started super early, before we had anything to sell, way before the pre-launch program, building a presence in social media. Things like having a waiting list. Okay, I have nothing to sell, but you can sign up for a waiting list. Sending newsletter, telling about progress. Getting people to feel like I am an innovator, I am an early adopter, I am someone who kind of buys product from startups. It's a good feeling, and it's a good feeling that we can play on when building companies. And marketing is also very much related to kind of PR and the brand, and like who do we want to be known for? Because not only do we need to care about the product or solution I'm building, is it like what should the price be and all, we also need to think a bit about, is this a premium product? Is this something that is going to be like a self-serve online volume, a completely kind of marketing driven way of selling? Is this something that is going to be sold to very few, but with high price? And all of these things should be reflected also in your marketing and your PR efforts. And now it sounds like, okay, now you need like a marketer, you need sales, and you need technology, you need all these people and all this money. And trust me, you don't. There is so much, first of all, tools that is for free. You can have a CRM system that costs basically like nothing, like HubSpot and one of the others. And I think this is one thing. Okay, let me give a practical example about this one thing that I've seen about being a bit too late to implement and think about like the sales and the marketing and like having that earliest part in our mindset. When I joined Huddly, I was employee number 7, and the founders, they had been going on already for like 2 years or something. They had so many contacts. They had so many people they already had met. But all of those contacts, they lived in the founders' inbox and in their heads and in their notebooks. And when I came in as the first on commercial side, it was just super hard to kind of like understand what relation has been here. Is this an investor? Is this a potential partner? Is this someone you think of hire? So to put things a bit in system, like early, both on the sales and the marketing side, and having simple tools doesn't cost much, but to measure and most of all save important data for later is like a big learning point. Because again, when an email or an contact sits in the head of the founder, it makes all the sense. It's super easy when I'm the founder myself and I'm going to reach out. And we start when the company grows and you start maybe getting not one salesperson, but like 2 or 3, and then the marketing, you really get paid back for having this like kind of simple structures in place early. And also sales and marketing and building a business model is also a lot about understanding the data you get always, and making decisions based on the data also that you get from the sales and the marketing side. Customer support in the beginning, when especially if you put an unfinished product in the hands of a customer, tends to be a lot of feedback, tends to be a lot of it doesn't work, or the typical one for young companies. Again, we are very niche, we're very narrow, meaning you don't solve all the customers' pain points or problems, right? If I'm a customer, I typically will ask for more and more features. I wish you had this, I wish you had that. And I always tell all the startups I mean, like, just like embrace customer feedback, also the negative one, and like see this as an opportunity to really build the right product, build something that creates real value. And yes, be ready to take the negativity. I mean, there's no company in the world that started with a finished product and a picture perfect product. In the beginning, there's so many bugs often, there's so many things that is just not the way it should be, and I always tell the technology people in the startups I've been that we should ship the product at a time where it's like just so embarrassing to have it in the hands of the customer. If the CTO is like embarrassed of like having the customer touch that product, that is the right time. And then again, just embrace feedback. Anything coming back, this is terrible feature, it doesn't work like that, embrace it, and because this is the fastest way to learn. Not us sitting and having team meetings on what should we do, what should we not do. So the whole customer support part is just something, it's super tiresome in the beginning because we tend to get so much negativity. But again, it's an extremely quick way to learn. As a rule of thumb, what do you call it? A rule or a way of building that I kind of think works good is to think a bit of as you can think like the technical part into 3 kind of brackets. One, we build what is coming from customer support, like and also like feature requests, anything the customers would like us to be doing. That could be like 1/3 of what you do. The other one is like bugs, which you just have to do, and the third one is what you can call maybe the more innovative parts, the things that customers are not even thinking of today. Customers tend to be looking at the world as it is today, and it's only us that is like living and breathing in like doing this one thing that we want to solve, that can think of how could it be if we just do things completely different. But to have like always like an ear to the market, but also like believe in like we build something that is not there from before, no one has thought of, and then do the bug fixing in between, tends to be, at least in my experience, a nice healthy mixture. Another thing, maybe not so much to do with the business model, but still everything to do with the business model. It all depends, of course, on where is your target market, where should you be. But if you're building a global product, I really encourage you to try to make the team reflect also like a global kind of audience or customer base. If you live in Norway and you only hire people who are Norwegian and went to school in Norway and has all their family in Norway, you tend to get very Norwegian glasses. In both Huddly and in Greps, we had it as a clear strategy to really, really early hire people that were not Norwegian. It's almost like we discriminated against Norwegians. Both teams were founded by Norwegians and was like rooted out of Oslo. But if you want to build a product that should be relevant in UK or in US or in India or in like wherever, I cannot emphasize the importance of team diversity. There were diversity in terms of gender, of course, maybe the one we think of the earliest, but also like geography, where you're coming from, and age. Combining people with experience with people straight from school, beautiful, but also different background. I've often heard that when you hire people, you should always hire people that are better than yourself. Yes, indeed, you should always do that. That's a great advice. But also hire people that are not exactly like you and yourself. Sometimes you see people starting up a company together with friends. It can work, but if so, I would be super careful about and honest with ourselves on where do we need to kind of complement ourselves. Because again, if the team is a bit like same people, same glasses on, same everything, it is super hard to also reflect in the global customer audience or target. But again, I've been talking, and I plan to actually stop talking now. I want to just give you a bit of like, this is where I'm coming from in terms of like the commercial side of building a startup. And now I hope that we can swap and go into a more interactive part. And I would love to hear some questions from you guys, and you can ask anything.
I have a question.
Sure.
So basically, if I understood correctly, it's you can create a company without already a product. Can you create a company without a product in mind? I mean, you have some kind of idea.
Yes.
But you okay?
Absolutely.
Because I was always taught, okay, you can't, like, you have to have already something. You have to have an idea what you want to do. Like, you have to have a thing in your hand and show it. You have to sell this, and then is when you need to make the company.
Yeah, but like it's something like for the things in the hand, how to get to the things in the hand, right?
Yeah.
It needs to start at some place, and like in my opinion, you need both a product or solution that is good, and you also need a business model around it. Like you need the two components for it to be like a full worthy company in the end. But if you say that you have a more commercial background, like you're not the typical CTO or the developer who can code and anything, there's tons of those founders starting. Then your strength will be maybe more on the commercial side, right? You'll probably be better in the validation and all of that. And then spend more time there first, validate first. And then the next step is to find maybe a technical co-founder, join a program like Antler. It's like I don't know if you know Antler. It's a place where they put together teams. Some of the people, they have an idea already, others don't. Antler is here in Oslo, they're in Sweden, and yeah, many places around the world now. But again, never let this I should have everything, or I don't know, for example, like me, I have commercial background, I cannot write a single line of code. That can never be a reason for like not starting the product. You just start where you start, right?
Okay. And then just take people that are strong in something that you're not to make a team.
Always look for people to complement your own skill set. So if you, for example, I don't know your background, but if you're more like from marketing or sales, okay, good. Then maybe the next person that you look for is maybe not who's exactly like yourself, but maybe more on the technical side. Sometimes you see that commercial founders, choose to use a consultancy firm, like an outsourcing firm, to build the very, very, very first, maybe MVP-ish, not even that, just to have something. And then they use that to test and to maybe get a pilot customer and to get also to fundraise. There's so many ways you can build a company, but there's never like that you must have the product or you must have the validation first. You can start from anywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So where do you place just an idea, because it's not yet a product, so where do you place it? Is it marketable? I mean, I don't know, like you have an idea, but then when you look around you, you probably don't have anything to like bring this idea into something very tangible. So you are talking about startups. Where do you place it?
Wait, where do you start, you mean, or?
Yeah, like you have an idea, for instance. Since you're talking about startups, you have an idea, and probably you don't really have what it takes to transform these ideas into something tangible, because, like you said, people are more interested in products, what they can see. Okay. Yeah. So
not necessarily. I would have started again with to dig into. Okay, I have an idea about something, and then I would have started with what problem will this something solve, right? What problem is it solving? For whom does it solve a problem? Right? Just write it down. And when you have the for whom, say okay, this is a product or a solution that will solve something for an Ager manager, for example. Okay, I have nothing more than that, than an idea and hypothesis, maybe. Okay, ask an Ager manager. And then next question is, okay, how do I get an Ager manager? I don't have any Ager managers in my network. For LinkedIn, best place ever if you do B2B. And it's not going to be maybe that you have an Ager manager, but someone in your network for sure has that. Ask that someone for a favor, like, hey, I see that you know the Ager manager of Microsoft or whatever company. Can you please give me an introduction? It is so much easier to get in touch if you have an introduction. Okay. It is people, yeah, I'm sure you have it a bit the same, Joachim. Like people call you, I want to sell you something, and you're just like, oh, stop bothering me, or you being like spam with commercial, and you're just like, go away, right? And when someone you trust or liked or a previous colleague say, hey, Joachim, guess what? I just talked to this person here the other day, and I think the two of you should have a talk. People are surprisingly much more willing to say yes. And I forgot to say earlier, be shameless. One of my favorite quotes. Just be so shameless. Just ask.
I think this is the second time I'm hearing this statement. Be shameless.
Yeah. Totally be shameless. Just ask for favors. And I saw that in Greps. I saw that in Headley. Like if you ask people like to help, right? People like to help startups. People think it's important for the society that we get more kind of businesses up and running, right? So most of the time people say yes, and you know what? Worst thing happened is like they say, no, I'm sorry, I cannot help you. But there's like no damage happened. So the worst thing that can happen if you ask for help is like getting annoyed, but that not asking is like a big loss. But if you have like, back to your question, I have nothing or I have an idea, like write it down on paper. What problem does it solve? Who has that problem? How can I solve that better than others? And again, no, I haven't built anything yet. I don't have anything. It's just an idea, right? It's just in my head or in the PowerPoint. More than enough. Ask someone, validate, right? Very often you see people start companies next to them being a student or having a full-time job. It's also very typical that companies are being started a bit while I'm actually doing something else or funding my life elsewhere, meaning I don't work full-time, but a bit here and there in the hours I can to get it started.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have a question. So,
Sure.
yeah, you mentioned scalability, right? And how startups or scale-ups could make their business scalable. What recommendations would you give, given the current context of the impact of the pandemic on scale-ups? How could companies adopt some kind of innovative approach towards that regard?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, it has never been easier for an unknown startup or scale-up to sell globally, because for the first time in history, everyone is on video, meaning I don't have to travel to London or I don't have to travel to San Francisco to have that meeting, right? People are sitting in front of their computers, and I don't know how many startups I've heard saying that we get meetings just so much easier now, meaning it's a fantastic opportunity that was not there before. Second of all, sitting in Norway is a small market, small country, and all of that. The fact that we can now be you as people can be super cool candidates for companies outside of Norway, startups, also completely changed now situation than before. So a lot of these geographical boundaries and barriers that used to be there, and especially in sales where it was more expected that I need to travel to kind of sell to you and then go back, all of them are gone. So there is an opportunity now for companies or for people who want to start companies or build, but also to find either be hired by other startups or find talent outside of where I'm located, if that's Oslo or Trondheim or whatever it is. So I think there's a couple of things now that is really in the advantage, and that is a bit regardless of what you're starting, though those elements are very much there now. Of course, it is tough now to start something in those industry hurt, if you hotels and restaurants and all of that. But at the same time, it's also a very temporarily period, right? That is expected. So I think there is no reason to say that this is now we just wait until this goes over. It's much more to see there is a window of opportunity now. That means that we can move much faster than ever before as young companies, or I just have an idea.
Thank you for that, Heidi. If I could ask a follow-up question, I know from your profile you also have experience with investing.
Yes.
How would you assess the current investor behavior? What industries are investors now particularly interested in at the moment, and what has changed, and how does this have an impact on what kind of ideas are more received within the venture capitalist industry?
Yeah, I think if you're referring to the pandemic and changes in that, I think we saw a big dip last spring, especially in Norway. But I guess this was a bit all over. It's very much. It was a very stopping. Many investors sat on the fence and just waited. That lasted for not that many months or /weeks, to be honest. So already after the summer, when people are a bit back to the new reality, how to cope with this, you saw investors being back on the field again. And of course, what the pandemic did was that it has really shown which companies were more resilient, more robust, could handle such a crisis coming. Of course, there's some industries that those that are being hit very, very hard. That is typically maybe not invested so much in as you would have seen before, because there's more insecurity. But again, look what's happening in Norway now in the airline company. Airlines, as you know, hit one of the hardest globally, right? People are not flying anymore. Look to Norway, what's been going on. We have from before, we have Norwegian and SAS that is there. Both been striving. SAS saved by the Danish and Swedish government. Norwegian, yet to see, but it seems like they're managed. And in addition, we have we have Wizz Air launching in Norway, and we have 2 now airline companies starting now in Norway. Like, so there's 3 new players in Norway in the midst of the pandemic where no one is flying, and they are fundraising, and there's a lot of money going on. So again, I think like this, I think like for yes, COVID has shown us some areas that is like booming like crazy, like and anything video and collaboration and like all of that, anything medtech related to this is like, yes, super hot. But again, I would be very careful of putting too much importance in the pandemic with like what company should I build or not build, or invest in or not invest in. Because again, I think the world expects that we will go back to normal, and the death of one company is an opportunity for others, either in extreme tough market conditions. So I think personally, I'm more of like, don't be too steered by the pandemic. There might be some opportunities now. They might give some momentums, but more important is like build something that will be also important post COVID, right? And just look for opportunities. And you said, sorry.
I just wanted to say that it's a theory of Schumpeter, creative destruction, when old companies die so that new ones can come.
Yes, exactly.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I think you see that like in the airline company. I mean, isn't it, this is the most insane time to start a whole new airline company, and 2 are being started in Norway, and 1 international is like entering the market. So there is this I think rather again, like, find those pockets. Where is there a need? Where can I solve a problem? Where I add value? How can I do that differently from the others? And go for that. And I think, Pascal, to your questions of like what verticals, I think it's hard to answer. It depends. If you read from the experts and investors, they tend to have a big variety actually in their answers, depending on who you ask. So I think there is not like maybe a good answer to that. It depends a bit on who you ask. And also another thing, remember, anytime you ask an investor, which industries do you see coming and who will like thrive in the future, they will always also say things that will protect their existing portfolio. If I have a lot of food tech in my portfolio, I will for sure point to food tech as the one. Like, there's always like with the glasses we have on, you know. Cool. If there is not more questions. No. Thank you, and bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.